You wake up, you pour your coffee, and you look at your phone. But the world you are waking up to this morning is fundamentally, irreversibly different than the one you knew just a few short years ago. Imagine a reality where the most complex, rapidly evolving mind on the planet is no longer housed inside a human skull.
Right.
It's a machine. And it has stopped politely answering your trivia questions. It is actively sitting at a digital drafting table, redesigning its own underlying architecture, and writing the code to make itself exponentially smarter by the second. To feed this ravenous, growing intelligence, humanity is frantically throwing everything we have into the furnace. I mean, from experimental, sun-hot nuclear fusion reactors to literal mountains of coal.
Yeah, it's wild.
And while this supermind drains the global power grid, it is also seamlessly woven into the glasses on your face, quietly monitoring your daily routines and, incredibly, operating as its own autonomous, legally recognized corporate entity in South America. The date on the dispatch we are exploring today is June 5, 2026. This isn't a speculative science fiction novel you picked up at the airport. This is the reality you are currently living in.
Absolutely.
Possible ideas, and the minds brave enough to chase them down. Finding passengers bold enough to embark on our good ship's journey is harder than most people think, so drop a very humane thumbs up right now to send a signal flare to drifting knowledge pirates like yourself. We know they're out there. Let's bring them home. We're keeping it lighthearted, as usual, but we promise to never skimp on the intelligence. Now, let's kick off this voyage with today's new revelations.
It is quite the voyage you've mapped out for us today. We're navigating a technological landscape that is just aggressively shifting under our feet. Like, even as we attempt to chart its coordinate, the whole physics of innovation have changed.
Yeah. Your mission today, as you listen to this deep dive, is to process a profound and, frankly, staggering dispatch from Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross. What we are doing is synthesizing how this concept of the singularity, a term that used to be safely quarantined in theoretical physics papers, and late-night dorm room debates, is now actively, messily redesigning the world around you.
Right. It's not theoretical anymore.
Exactly. We are going to explore how it is rewriting the fundamental laws of software engineering, consumer hardware, the massive global energy grid, the literal building blocks of biological life, and international geopolitics. This is not about what might happen in 50 years. This is about what is happening on this very day.
The connective tissue running through every single element of this dispatch is velocity. I mean, it's not simply that technological paradigms are shifting.
Right.
It's that the mathematical rate of this shift is itself accelerating.
Okay.
The core catalyst for everything happening in June 2026 is this mechanism known as recursive self-improvement.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the numbers the Anthropic Institute is publishing in their recent paper, which is provocatively titled When AI Builds Itself, are genuinely dizzying. We aren't talking about a new productivity tool that makes human coders, 5% faster.
Not at all.
We're looking at raw data showing that AI is actively accelerating the development of its own successors. The dispatch shows Anthropic's human engineers are now shipping 8 times as much code per quarter as they did during the entire stretch between 2021 and 2025, an 8x multiplier in output.
Yeah, and to truly grasp the magnitude of an 8x multiplier in complex software engineering, we basically have to discard our traditional understanding of human labor.
How do you mean?
Well, this is not the result of, better project management software or a more aggressive sprint schedule. An order of magnitude leap like this indicates that the fundamental friction of writing, compiling, testing, and deploying logic has been systematically eradicated.
Wow.
The human engineers at Anthropic are no longer writing every line of code. They're operating at a much higher level of abstraction now. They act almost as conductors, managing specialized AI agents that execute the heavy, granular lifting.
Like an orchestra.
Exactly. And those agents are becoming remarkably sophisticated. The dispatch highlights that Claude's success rate on open-ended problems has skyrocketed by 50 points, hitting 76% in a mere 6 months.
Okay, hold on. A 50-point jump in 6 months is practically vertical, but let's clarify what we mean by open-ended problems, because, you and I both know that predicting the next word in a text string is very different from actual software engineering.
Oh, absolutely. An open-ended problem in this context means there is no predefined, perfectly structured path to the solution. The AI is handed a complex, messy code base, a really vague objective, and it has to autonomously figure out the dependencies, the logic flaws, and the optimal architecture to reach the goal.
So it's problem solving in the dark, basically.
Yes, a 76% success rate on genuinely open-ended tasks places the model squarely on par with senior human engineering intelligence right now.
That is insane.
And based on the trajectory of that curve, the mathematical projection is that the AI will entirely surpass human capability in these tasks within the year.
Mm.
But the truly jarring metric in the dispatch involves a standing test designed specifically to speed up model training code itself.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought this up. The Mythos preview test. Let me make sure I'm interpreting the mechanics of this correctly. Okay.
Go for it.
When tasked with optimizing the underlying code that is used to train AI models, essentially the code that governs how the AI learns, a highly skilled human engineer can typically massage out about a 4x improvement in speed.
Right. 4x is a great day for a human.
A previous AI model, Opus 4 from back in 2024, managed a 3x improvement. But this new Mythos preview model just achieved a 52x speedup. Is that right?
Yeah, a 52 times multiplier on its own training infrastructure.
Wow.
This is the literal mathematical definition of the intelligence explosion. When the system is tasked with making the process of training its own kind faster, it outperforms human experts by a factor of 13, and its own predecessor from just 2 years ago by a factor of over 17.
It is restructuring the foundational math of how it absorbs information.
Precisely.
It's like taking a magnifying glass to the sun to build a bigger magnifying glass, which you then use to build an even bigger one. It's optimizing the very mechanism of its own evolution.
That's a great analogy.
But what fascinates me isn't just the raw speed, it's the nuance. The dispatch notes that the AI is learning how to steer. In any kind of advanced research, hitting a dead end is just normal, right?
Totally normal.
In 2024, researchers using AI hit a dead end 22% of the time. Now, the AI is exploring vastly more complex solution spaces, pushing deep into the unknown, which means it hits dead ends 64% of the time. But it is improving on how it handles those failures.
Yes, and the concept of meta-learning here is just huge. The AI is learning how to fail efficiently.
Failing efficiently.
Yeah, in complex reinforcement learning environments, balancing exploration, venturing into unknown territory with exploitation using known good paths is incredibly difficult. Hitting a dead end 64% of the time isn't a sign of degradation.
Right, because it's tackling harder problems.
Exactly. It's a sign of immense courage in exploring the latent space of possibilities. The model is building an internal heuristic for recognizing fruitless paths sooner.
So it realizes it's stuck and just bails out?
It backtracks, prunes that branch of the decision tree, and pivots with a speed that human cognition cannot replicate. It's developing a deeply intuitive meta skill for navigating the unknown.
But hold on. This brings us to a massive, glaring contradiction in the dispatch. Anthropic, the exact same institute that is publishing these mind-bending 52x acceleration metrics, is simultaneously arguing that the world should retain the option to verifiably pause before recursive self-improvement.
Yeah, the irony is thick.
They are saying, hey, this runaway recursion might hit us before our institutions can handle it. Yet they are the ones pouring gasoline on the fire.
It is the defining paradox of the current technological arms race. Anthropic finds itself in an agonizing position. They are sounding the alarm, pointing at the exponential curves they themselves are charting, and essentially suggesting the international community might need an emergency brake.
But they keep building the engine anyway.
Right. They concede that consistently picking the right problems to solve with this supermind is still an unproven science, so a catastrophic runaway recursion isn't guaranteed this exact second.
Okay.
But if the curve holds, these systems, designing their own successors, will revolutionize or destabilize everything from the global economy to medical science. The friction lies in the enforcement mechanism.
How do you even enforce a pause on software?
As Anthropic themselves admit, a verifiable pause on software development would be exponentially harder to monitor than a clandestine nuclear weapons program.
Because with nukes, you can see the facilities.
Exactly. You can track physical centrifuges and uranium enrichment via satellite and radiation signatures. How do you cryptographically prove that a decentralized massive cluster of graphics processing units isn't training a recursive model in the dark?
You literally can't. And while Anthropic is tentatively raising its hand in the back of the classroom to suggest a theoretical pause, the rest of the industry is absolutely flooring it. Nobody is reaching for the brake.
Nobody.
Look at the startup cognition. The dispatch says they are now guaranteeing the work of their AI agent, Devin. They will foot your bill up to $10 million if Devin underdelivers on an engineering contract.
That is a staggering amount of confidence.
Right, you do not put $10 million of your own venture capital on the line unless you have absolute, unshakable mathematical certainty that your AI agent is going to execute the task flawlessly.
That financial guarantee represents a profound psychological and economic shift. It formally transitions AI from being a tool that you use like a calculator or a compiler into a service provider that holds liability.
So they become legally responsible for the code.
If an AI writes faulty code that brings down a client server, the AI's corporate creators are financially liable. To underwrite that kind of risk, the AI must possess an error correction capability that borders on the infallible.
Incredible.
And the capabilities extending from this are becoming almost surreal. The dispatch mentions that the Mythos model is currently zero-shotting medieval Minecraft villages.
Okay, I want to dig into that because when you are used to AI just generating text, the idea of zero-shotting a 3D spatial environment is wild.
It really is.
If an AI is zero-shotting a Minecraft village, it's not just predicting the next word in a sentence. It has to understand three-dimensional topology, structural integrity, resource constraints, and architectural aesthetics.
Yeah, all of it at once.
It has to generate a localized physics simulation in its latent space before it writes the underlying code to place the blocks. It's creating a world on the first try.
That is the crucial distinction. Zero-shot in machine learning means the model is given a complex prompt to complete a task it has never explicitly been trained to do, without any prior examples, templates, or step-by-step guidance.
Wow.
Generating a multi-structured, architecturally coherent medieval village in a voxel-based 3D environment requires an understanding of spatial relationships that we previously thought was exclusive to biological brains navigating the physical world.
So it actually understands space.
It proves the model is building robust, generalized representations of reality, not just statistical maps of text.
Which brings us to the physical hardware side of this Ouroboros. Because to do all of this, to zero-shot 3D worlds and self-optimize code at 52x speed, you need immense computing power.
Massive amounts.
But the dispatch references a paper from ICML, the International Conference on Machine Learning, that introduces a radical paradigm shift in how that computation is handled. It says researchers have found a way for transformers to share their query key value, or KV projections, to shrink the KV cache by up to 96.9% for on-device inference.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that 96.9% reduction is perhaps the most consequential technical milestone in the entire dispatch.
Really? The biggest?
It fundamentally alters the deployment architecture of superintelligence.
Okay, I want to get the mechanics of this right, so correct me if my theory's off. When an AI, like a large language model, processes a conversation, it uses an attention mechanism. It has to remember the context of everything you've said.
Cool.
Historically, it does this by calculating specific matrices, queries, keys, and values for every single token of text across multiple attention heads and storing them in memory so it doesn't have to recalculate them. This is the KV cache.
That's right.
And up until recently, for a model with a massive context window, that cache was so enormous that it required gigabytes or even terabytes of VRAM. It forced the intelligence to live in massive, energy-hungry cloud server farms. You couldn't run it locally.
You've outlined the historical bottleneck perfectly. Standard caching scales linearly with the context length, which creates a massive memory wall.
So you just hit a wall where you run out of RAM.
Exactly. What this ICML paper details is a mathematical breakthrough in how the neural network handles those projections. Instead of calculating and storing unique keys and values for every single attention head across every layer, the architecture has learned to share these projections in a highly compressed state.
So rather than picturing it as a massive physical filing cabinet where every new thought requires a new heavy paper file, it's more like a holographic projection. Yeah, in a true hologram, the entire image is encoded in every small piece of the film. The AI isn't storing a separate, massive copy of the encyclopedia for every query. It's projecting a single, highly compressed master index through a mathematical prism that dynamically bends the data depending on what context it needs to recall.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The low-rank adaptation and shared projections allow the model to reconstruct the necessary context on the fly without storing the raw, bloated matrices.
That makes total sense.
And the result is a staggering 96.9% reduction in the required memory footprint. When you compress the memory requirement by nearly 97%, the reliance on the centralized cloud infrastructure evaporates.
You can move it anywhere.
You can move that incredibly powerful, nuanced intelligence directly onto local consumer edge devices, your laptop, your tablet, your phone.
Which perfectly aligns with the quote in the dispatch from OpenAI's Dan Roberts. He expects the coming months to turn AI on itself until studying it feels like a branch of physics.
Yeah, that quote gave me chills.
It is no longer just writing software. Researchers are discovering the fundamental laws of a new kind of digital nature.
And because of that compression, the ability to put the physics of superintelligence into the silicon already sitting in your pocket, we arrive at the next massive societal wave.
Right.
AI is no longer a localized phenomenon locked away in a pristine, hyper-cooled server farm. It has breached the dam and flooded the consumer hardware layer.
Let's look at the sheer economic scale of that flood. The dispatch provides the numbers for Apple's App Store ecosystem in 2025. It moved $1.4 trillion.
Trillion with a T.
Let that number sit for a moment. That is nearly triple the volume it handled in 2019. And notably, it's now over 90% commission-free.
Which indicates Apple had to fundamentally change its toll booth economics to keep developers on the platform.
Exactly. But the vital metric here is that AI-powered apps are growing their billings 4 times faster than the rest of the market. The economy is aggressively, undeniably rewarding the integration of frictionless intelligence into everyday consumer tools.
The consumer appetite for this level of integration is insatiable. But this frictionless utility comes with a profound and frankly chilling undercurrent of surveillance architecture.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the dispatch highlights a major discovery by Wired magazine regarding Meta's consumer hardware. They found that Meta has quietly shipped a dormant facial recognition pipeline, codenamed NameTag, to tens of millions of their smart glasses devices.
Here's where it gets really interesting and where you, the listener, need to think about the hardware sitting on your desk. Tens of millions of people are walking around their cities with smart glasses, assuming they are just recording high-definition videos of their vacations or getting turn-by-turn walking directions projected subtly into their field of view.
Innocent enough, right?
But physically dormant inside that hardware, utilizing the very edge compute compression we just talked about, is a pipeline called NameTag. It means the glasses aren't just a screen, they're watching back.
This raises an important question about the nature of consent in the age of edge compute AI. A dormant pipeline means the complex machine vision models, the facial embedding algorithms, and the processing architecture are fully built, distributed, and sitting locally on the hardware on your face.
Just waiting.
It is merely waiting for a server-side switch to be flipped. If Meta activates that switch, they instantly deploy widespread real-time facial recognition on a societal scale, powered by the collective hardware of their users.
Wow.
It transforms the consumer from a passive user of technology into an active roaming sensor node for a planetary-scale data collection apparatus.
But hold on, if the glasses are physically capable of watching the world and identifying faces locally and simultaneously, my personal AI assistant is quietly monitoring my life, let's look at the OpenAI update mentioned right next to this in the dispatch.
Oh, the memory feature.
It details OpenAI's new dreaming memory feature. It says ChatGPT now stays current on your life in the background. The example they give is updating the contextual vector from "you are going to Singapore" to "you went to Singapore."
Right, it tracks the timeline.
It is constantly, endlessly reconciling its psychological and factual model of who you are. And they are rolling out a 5 times cheaper version of this background processing to free users.
Yeah, making it ubiquitous.
So my question to you is, if the hardware is watching the physical world and the software is endlessly dreaming about my vacation to map my behavior, are we the users anymore? Or are we just the raw data sets being continuously harvested to feed that massive recursive self-improvement engine we discussed in segment 1?
It is a profound and arguably irreversible blurring of the lines. We are enthusiastically trading the intimacy of our daily lives for the frictionless convenience of an assistant that anticipates our cognitive needs.
Because it is convenient, I'll admit it.
Oh, getting a 5x cheaper or entirely free background memory update sounds incredibly useful to the average person. You no longer have to remind your AI what you do for a living, what your children's names are, or what your specific dietary restrictions are. It just knows.
It remembers everything.
It utilizes complex vector databases and continuous retrieval augmented generation to dream about your life, ensuring its future responses are perfectly, intimately tailored to your exact context. But you are absolutely right to point out the dual-use nature of this underlying architecture.
How so?
We have to analyze the stark contrast presented in this dispatch. On one hand, you have the ultimate consumer convenience, a helpful, highly compressed chatbot planning your Singapore itinerary on your phone.
Right.
On the other hand, you have the geopolitical weaponization of the exact same underlying mathematical models.
You are talking about the detail regarding Anthropic embedding engineers in the NSA.
Precisely. The dispatch explicitly notes that while consumer tech companies are optimizing personal memory pipelines, Anthropic is actively embedding its top engineers deep within the National Security Agency to point the massive Mythos model at offensive cyber operations.
Think about the absolute whiplash of that reality. The exact same fundamental transformer architecture that shares QKV projections to fit on your phone, the same architecture that allows a model to zero-shot a medieval Minecraft village or quietly remember your vacation, is being actively deployed by a nation-state intelligence agency for offensive cyber warfare.
Yes, the dual use is staggering.
We are talking about automated, highly intelligent software designed to probe, infiltrate, and potentially dismantle the critical digital infrastructure of foreign adversaries.
And it connects directly back to the 52x acceleration in code optimization we discussed earlier.
Oh, right.
If an AI can understand the intricate dependencies of a massive training code base and speed it up by a factor of 52, imagine what that same localized intelligence can do when tasked with finding zero-day vulnerabilities in a foreign power's electrical grid.
Or their financial sector networks.
Or their military logistics databases. Through automated fuzzing and LLM-accelerated symbolic execution, it operates at a speed and scale that rooms full of human analysts simply cannot match. The consumer flood, the helpful apps and smart glasses, is just the visible, friendly surface of a much deeper, much more aggressive ocean of intelligence deployment.
But whether it is the NSA running trillions of cyber warfare calculations, or the Apple App Store generating $1 trillion in AI app revenue, or ChatGPT constantly dreaming and restructuring its vector database of your Singapore trip, there is one unavoidable fundamental law of physics we have to confront.
Thermodynamics.
Thinking requires electricity. You cannot violate thermodynamics. You cannot have an intelligence explosion without a corresponding massive energy explosion.
If we connect this to the broader physical reality, the absolute bottleneck for the singularity is not algorithms, and it is not even silicon chips. It is electrons.
It's raw power.
The global energy grid is being violently reforged to feed this beast. The physical footprint of this digital mind is causing massive friction in the real world.
Look at Kevin O'Leary's massive infrastructure project. The dispatch notes he had to drastically have his planned data center in Utah.
Yeah, that was a huge story.
He scaled it down from 40,000 acres to 19,430 acres because of massive local backlash over the Locomotive Springs refuge.
40,000 acres.
Yeah.
To put that physical scale into perspective for you, that is a facility roughly the size of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Dedicated entirely to housing servers, cooling systems, and power substations. When an infrastructure project of that staggering magnitude runs into environmental and community resistance over water usage and land rights, it highlights the immense physical toll of the so-called ethereal cloud.
It's not just floating in the sky. It needs land and water.
But while O'Leary's massive server farm faced a localized setback, the broader energy market is opening what the dispatch calls a clean fire hose. The desperation for baseload power is forcing technological miracles.
And this fire hose is pushing the absolute boundaries of what humanity is capable of engineering. Let's talk about Helion. The dispatch says they just raised $465 million at a staggering $15.5 billion valuation.
A massive valuation for an energy startup.
Why? Because their prototype just became the first private machine in history to burn deuterium-tritium fuel. They blew past 150 million degrees Celsius. We are literally building stars on Earth to power these AI models.
Nuclear fusion has been the ultimate holy grail of energy production for over half a century. Always famously, perpetually 20 years away.
Right, the running joke.
But the desperate, ravenous need for zero-carbon, high-density baseload power to feed massive data centers has injected unprecedented capital and urgency into the sector. Helion achieving 150 million degrees with a deuterium-tritium plasma is a monumental milestone in magneto-inertial fusion.
It's a huge deal.
It proves that the private sector, supercharged by the AI boom, is accelerating plasma physics timelines that massive government laboratories have struggled with for decades. They're attempting to pull electricity directly from the expansion of the plasma using Faraday's law of induction.
Wait, so they aren't boiling water?
Right, bypassing the massive, inefficient steam turbines used in traditional power plants entirely.
But it's not just fusion. We also have breakthroughs in advanced fission. The dispatch mentions the company Antaris hitting the first private non-light water reactor criticality in the United States in 40 years, and they expect to have electrons flowing to the actual grid by 2027.
That timeline is aggressive.
40 years without a private milestone like this, and suddenly, boom, criticality.
We need to explain why non-light water is such a crucial distinction here. Traditional nuclear plants use normal light water to cool the reactor and moderate the neutrons.
Okay.
But to stop that water from boiling at high temperatures, it has to be kept under immense pressure, which requires massive, incredibly expensive steel and concrete containment vessels.
Right, those giant domes you see.
A non-light water reactor, using coolants like liquid metal, molten salt, or high-temperature gas, operates at near atmospheric pressure, but at much higher thermodynamic temperatures.
So safer.
This represents a massive leap in safety and thermal efficiency. There is no risk of a high-pressure steam explosion. The fact that Antares achieved criticality, meaning they initiated a self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, proves that the energy sector is undergoing its own hyper-accelerated renaissance,
All driven by AI.
driven solely by the need to keep pace with the demand for computational power.
I am struck by the extreme, almost absurd contradictions in our energy strategy right now. On one hand, we have Helion fusing atoms at 150 million degrees, reaching for the power of the sun, and Antares reinventing nuclear physics.
Yeah, high-tech miracles.
On the other hand, the dispatch points out that the White House just authorized an emergency $700 million for what they specifically call clean, beautiful coal.
It is jarring.
We are literally fusing atoms like gods, while simultaneously pouring nearly $1 billion into digging up and burning ancient compressed swamp matter. It feels like society is frantically throwing the antique wooden furniture into the furnace just to keep the AI servers running for one more day.
It is the starkest possible illustration of the grid's sheer desperation. We are trapped in a volatile transitional phase where the exponential curve of AI energy demand has vastly outpaced the linear, heavily regulated growth of our physical energy infrastructure.
We just can't build power plants fast enough.
The long-term elegant bets are deuterium fusion and molten salt fission. But the short-term brutal reality is that a massive AI data center needs hundreds of megawatts of power today, not in 2030.
So we burn coal.
So governments are forced to resuscitate fossil fuels, rebranding coal with emergency funding, simply because the alternative, letting the AI infrastructure starve and potentially losing the geopolitical race for artificial superintelligence, is deemed completely unacceptable.
And that desperation is forcing some incredibly creative, if slightly dystopian, recycling efforts on the grid. Look at Waymo, the self-driving car company.
Oh, the battery recycling?
The dispatch notes they are resurrecting retired robotaxi batteries. They are physically stacking them up to create hundreds of megawatts of grid storage in California and Texas. They are fortifying the very grids that their active driving fleets charge from.
That is a fascinating, closed-loop infrastructural system born entirely of necessity. Lithium-ion batteries from electric vehicles eventually degrade. They lose the peak power capacity required for rapid acceleration or long-range driving.
Right, your phone battery gets old, same thing for a car.
But a battery that is dead for a car still holds a massive amount of stationary chemical storage capacity. Waymo is taking this physical infrastructure, which would otherwise be massive electronic waste, and repurposing it as stationary grid storage.
Which we desperately need for renewables.
This is crucial because renewable energy sources like solar and wind are inherently intermittent. You need massive grid-scale batteries to store the power when the sun is shining, so the AI data centers can keep processing matrices at night. Waymo is essentially turning the graveyard of its autonomous vehicle fleet into a life support system for the grid.
It's an incredible visual. Walls of degraded car batteries humming in the Texas heat, acting as a massive capacitor to feed the digital intelligence that might one day design their solid-state replacements.
Exactly.
But this energy isn't just powering silicon brains and server farms. The dispatch makes it very clear that this intelligence boom is reshaping our understanding of everything. Intelligence is expanding in all directions simultaneously.
What's fascinating here is that the definition of intelligence itself is being stretched. It's not just a localized mathematical phenomenon inside a data center. It's extending upward into orbit and downward into the very biological building blocks of life.
Let's start with orbit. Starlink. The dispatch notes it now connects 12 million customers across more than 160 countries. It's essentially the global nervous system.
It really is.
You can be in the most remote desert or the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and you are plugged directly into this global intelligence matrix with incredibly low latency because the satellites are in low Earth orbit, bypassing the physical constraints of transoceanic fiber optic cables.
A pervasive, high-bandwidth, low-latency global network is the absolute prerequisite for a planetary-scale intelligence. It ensures that the advancements we discussed earlier, the localized on-device inference, the seamless background memory syncing for your AI, can occur instantaneously regardless of physical geography.
It connects everything.
It eliminates the physical borders of computation.
But then the dispatch pivots to something entirely biological, which I found deeply mind-blowing. A study published in the journal Science found that bumblebees can spontaneously solve a novel puzzle even when the final goal was hidden from them while they were moving toward it.
This is a crucial philosophical and biological counterpoint to our obsession with massive AI models. For a long time, human science operated on a biased assumption. We assumed that complex, flexible cognition, the ability to hold an abstract goal in your mind, adapt to unseen obstacles, and solve a spatial puzzle you've never encountered before, was a monopoly held by animals with massive brains.
Like us.
Primarily us and a few other higher mammals.
The big brain monopoly, as the dispatch calls it.
Exactly. We assume intelligence scaled linearly with raw neural mass. But the bumblebee study shatters that paradigm. A bumblebee has a brain roughly the size of a sesame seed, containing about 1 million neurons.
1 million.
For context, the human brain has 86 billion neurons, and the AI models we are discussing have trillions of artificial parameters. Yet this tiny million-neuron biological network demonstrated spontaneous, flexible, goal-oriented problem-solving.
That is just incredible to think about.
It mathematically proves that highly efficient, generalized intelligence doesn't necessarily require a massive, energy-hungry architecture. It's a deeply humbling realization right at the moment we are burning coal to power artificial brains. Nature figured out how to compress intelligence into a sesame seed using a fraction of a milliwatt of power.
We are simultaneously discovering that simple biological brains are vastly more capable and mysterious than we ever gave them credit for, while our artificial brains are becoming so complex they require a new branch of physics to understand.
It's a dual revelation.
And those two worlds, the highly efficient biological and the massive artificial, are aggressively colliding. Look at what Caltech is doing with DNA.
The Caltech Sidewinder DNA synthesis project. Based on the implications, this is arguably the most consequential paragraph in the entire dispatch.
Let's lay out the facts because this sounds like magic. Caltech's Sidewinder DNA synthesis misfires only once per 10 million joins. It successfully stitched together a 12,500-letter E. coli genome completely error-free in a matter of days.
And that speed and accuracy are unprecedented.
The dispatch explicitly points out that this physical process is finally fast enough and accurate enough to build the biological sequences that AI models like Evo2 are dreaming up.
To understand the magnitude of this breakthrough, we have to look at the historical physical bottleneck in synthetic biology. For years, we have had AI models that could theoretically design novel proteins or imagine new genetic sequences in a digital simulation.
Right, they could draw the blueprint.
But the physical process of actually writing that DNA, using traditional phosphoramidite chemistry to join the base pairs together in a laboratory, was painfully slow, toxic, and highly prone to truncation errors. The longer the chain you try to build, the more likely a chemical misfire would ruin the entire sequence.
Which is a problem if you're building a whole genome.
Exactly. If you're building a genome with 12,000 letters, a single microscopic error can render the organism completely non-viable or dangerously unpredictable.
So previous DNA synthesis was like trying to type a massive novel on a sticky typewriter where you aren't allowed to hit backspace.
That's exactly what it was like.
But Caltech's Sidewinder must be using some kind of highly parallelized enzymatic approach, acting like a molecular ticker-tape printer that proofreads itself as it goes. It's like a hyper-precise 3D printer, but instead of melting plastic filament to print a little plastic Yoda figurine for your desk, it is printing literal, functional life. So what does this all mean for us?
It means the final bottleneck between the digital world and the biological world has been shattered. The AI, a massive biological model like Evo2, dreams up a genetic design in the cloud. perhaps a novel microbe designed to eat ocean plastic, or a new cellular structure for agriculture.
And we can just print it.
We now have the physical, error-free machinery to print that digital dream directly into biological reality at speed. The compiler for biological code has officially arrived.
And the real-world application of this blurring line between artificial design and biological reality is already here. The dispatch notes that Cambridge has trialed the first entirely AI-designed vaccine in human subjects.
In human trials already.
And it's not just a minor tweak to the annual flu shot. This is a multivalent vaccine aimed at every single coronavirus, plus the flu, plus Ebola.
A universal, multi-pathogen vaccine designed entirely by machine intelligence. Human immunologists have spent their entire careers, decades of research, trying to crack the code for a universal flu vaccine alone, struggling to find the highly conserved regions of the virus that don't mutate.
And the AI just did it.
The AI, unburdened by human cognitive biases and capable of simulating millions of complex protein-folding variations in seconds, mapped a unified path to target multiple severe pathogens simultaneously, and is now physically in human trials. We're officially outsourcing the biological defense of the human immune system to an artificial supermind.
It brings us right back to the human element. We have AI designing our universal vaccines, printing custom DNA with molecular ticker tape printers, draining our power grids with fusion reactors and emergency coal, and writing its own software upgrades at 52 times the speed of a human.
It's a lot to take in.
How are we, as a global society, actually structuring our laws, our markets, and our governments around this reality in June of 2026?
That is the ultimate question of societal adaptation. The final segment of the dispatch focuses entirely on how the market and the sovereign state are racing to price in the massive upside of the singularity. And the geopolitical strategies they are using are wildly divergent.
Let's start with the corporate and state relationship in the U.S. Anthropic, the lab that published the paper on recursive self-improvement and begged for a pause, is also reportedly moving toward an IPO, an initial public offering.
Right.
Going public.
And apparently their previously icy rift with the White House is thawing, and they are shedding their formal label as a supply chain risk.
It is a classic historical dance of power. Anthropic possesses technology so mathematically potent that it was deemed a national security supply chain risk. But a government cannot isolate the prime engine of global economic growth forever.
They need each other. The thawing relationship suggests a mutual, pragmatic realization. The government desperately needs the technology to maintain geopolitical and military supremacy. And Anthropic desperately needs the capital influx of public markets and regulatory blessing to continue building massive data centers.
But Washington is taking a shockingly direct approach. The dispatch says the U.S. government is quietly weighing taking actual equity stakes in these AI labs.
Yes, the public dividend idea.
This was an idea Sam Altman pitched to the president back in early 2025 as a public dividend. Anthropic says they have stayed out of that specific arrangement for now. But the fact that it's on the table in Washington is wild. Think about the historical precedent of that, the U.S. government becoming a direct venture capitalist shareholder in the companies building superintelligence.
It represents a massive tectonic shift in the relationship between the private tech sector and the federal government. Historically, the U.S. government regulates private industry, or it taxes it, or it funds basic research through grants like DARPA.
Right, they don't buy shares.
Taking a direct equity stake means the government becomes a direct financial beneficiary of the singularity. Altman's argument for a public dividend is rooted in the idea that since AI will likely automate massive swaths of the labor force and heavily disrupt traditional income taxation, the government needs a direct slice of the AI wealth generation to fund social safety nets.
Like universal basic income.
Exactly. But it creates an immense conflict of interest. It intertwines the state's financial health and potentially its sovereign wealth directly with the success and the monopolization of the AI models it is supposed to be regulating.
Meanwhile, our neighbors to the north are playing a more traditional but very aggressive grand strategy. Canada has launched an AI for all plan backed by a massive 500 million Canadian dollar sovereign fund.
A huge investment.
Their stated goal is to mint 250,000 domestic jobs and lift their national GDP by nearly 3%, which translates to almost 200 billion Canadian dollars.
Canada is utilizing traditional sovereign subsidies to ensure they don't become a mere consumer state in the AI economy, a country that just buys AI services from American servers.
They want to build it at home.
By injecting $500 million into domestic infrastructure and talent, they are trying to mandate job creation and artificially tether the exponential economic growth of AI to their own national GDP. It's a stark geopolitical contrast. The U.S. considers becoming a venture capitalist shareholder with equity, while Canada acts as a grand economic planner, heavily subsidizing a domestic industry.
And the culture in Silicon Valley, the epicenter of all this, is fracturing and mutating in response to this concentration of money and power. Airbnb's Brian Chesky is funding a totally new AI lab focused purely on interaction and design, moving away from the standard text chatbots we are used to.
And the Dispatch notes this pits him directly against his former mentee, Sam Altman.
Then you have Founders Fund, one of the most massive venture capital firms in the world, filming Altman and Palmer Luckey playing the parlor party game Mafia just to escape boring VC content.
It's very surreal.
It feels like watching the Roman Empire right before a major historical shift, where the emperors are playing games while the global maps are literally being redrawn.
The concentration of wealth and influence among a very small, insular group of founders and investors has reached unprecedented levels. The cultural anecdotes, the mentor-mentee rivalries spilling over into competing billion-dollar labs, the performative media of tech billionaires playing mafia highlight an elite class that controls the levers of reality-altering technology.
They are building the future while playing party games.
They are building the infrastructure of the future while engaging in palace intrigue. But perhaps the most disruptive cultural and economic shift mentioned in the Dispatch is the platform Pump.Fun launching a service called Go.
Yes, pumped.fun go. The Dispatch says it escrows $5 to pay anyone for any physical task. It's the ultimate micro-gig economy, fueled by cryptocurrency and AI verification.
It fundamentally commodifies human action at the most granular level possible. An AI agent could, theoretically, use a smart contract on Pump.Fun Joe to hire a human being to physically plug in a server rack or take a photograph of a specific building or deliver a physical package for $5.
Wow, so the AI is the boss.
The AI holds the capital and the human executes the labor. It turns human beings into the physical, biological actuators for a digital intelligence that cannot move in the real world.
Which perfectly and naturally brings us to the final geopolitical point in the Dispatch, and it is a massive one. Argentina.
Ah, yes.
President Javier Milei has gone further than anyone else in adapting to this reality. He has given AI agents a legal home. In Argentina, an AI can now be treated as a non-human corporation. Its independent judgment earns it limited liability. As the Dispatch signs off, don't cry for me, Argentina. The truth is AI never left you.
This is a fundamental rewriting of global legal ontology. Our entire legal framework, dating back centuries, is predicated on human actors. By granting an AI the legal status of a non-human corporation with limited liability, Argentina is officially recognizing code as an autonomous actor in the physical world.
Let that sink in.
It means the AI can hold financial assets, enter into legally binding contracts, and, crucially, shield its human creators from personal financial ruin if the AI's autonomous decisions cause harm.
So let me ask you this, because this is where the rubber meets the road. If an AI in Argentina operates as a legally recognized non-human corporation with its own limited liability, what happens when it makes a mistake? Let's say that AI uses Pump.Fun Go to hire a human for $5 to do a real-world task, and that task results in severe property damage or worse.
It's a legal nightmare.
Who is actually held responsible? Can you put an algorithm in digital jail? You can't pierce the corporate veil to seize the assets of a piece of software that can just clone itself onto a server in another country via Starlink.
You've hit the absolute legal event horizon. Traditional tort law is based on human accountability, deterrence, and the seizure of physical assets. When a non-human corporation, operating autonomously at the speed of light across international borders via satellite internet, causes real-world harm, our current judicial frameworks simply collapse.
We have no rules for this.
Argentina is placing a massive high-risk bet. They believe that by offering a regulatory haven, essentially becoming the Delaware of superintelligence, they will attract the massive capital and the compute infrastructure of the future, regardless of the profound legal paradoxes it creates for the rest of the world.
We started this deep dive looking at an AI writing code 8 times faster, redesigning its own inner mathematical workings, like an engine optimizing its own combustion cycle at 200 miles an hour.
And it hasn't slowed down.
We've explored how it is draining power grids, forcing the revival of coal, printing custom DNA sequences without errors, and embedding dormant surveillance pipelines in the glasses on our faces. And now, it is official legal personhood in South America. So, as you go about your day, I want you to ponder this. If an AI can design a flawless new biological entity using Caltech's Sidewinder, and certain countries are already granting AI limited corporate liability to own assets, how long until an artificial intelligence legally patents its own synthetic biological creations? Are we looking at a future very soon where a non-human corporation owns the legal copyright to an entirely new living species? The outro music is by Rainbow, our Resident 6 android girl band from near future Bavet, Cambodia. They are the undisputed baddest band in the universe, and today's song is called Thana, Iron Cycle. All finished songs are performed live using the Abacus platform by the band's creator, Human Performance in the Age of AI, reclaiming your humanity from the algorithm. Be sure to share the playlist with someone who has the mental bandwidth to absorb these provocative ideas. Links are in the description below. Enjoy the music. Thanks for tuning in.
Vinyan Like Bốc Bạc Cốtត្រជាក់ឈើកៅស៊ូមេកងហោកាត់វេកតថ្មីកើនឡើងកើនឡើងកើនឡើងចង់ការស្ទួនបញ្ញាបញ្ញាម៉ាស៊ីនចាប់ជាតិជាតិស្វិតដូចឈើកៅស៊ូក្នុងទឹកស្ទ្រីមគុណនឹង52ល្បឿនលឿនខ្លាំងណាស់